My man! Welcome to the show. How are you? Really excited as a parent and as a person of color to have our guest today. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey guys, what's up? It's Irfan. I'm super excited to have our next guest. His name is Eric Stoffers, CEO and founder of a BioXcellerator. Part of my interest, as everyone knows who listens to the podcast, is interviewing people that are very passionate about what they do and folks that are making an impact on society. And it, based on the sacrifices that Eric has made, I think he qualifies for both of those areas. So Eric, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, so I want to dig right into it. Well, let's start with what BioXcellerator does. It sounds like a very fancy name. It sounds like it's tucked away in some bunker that nobody knows about, and they're doing some top secret stuff. Well, what does BioXcellerator do?
Well, the component that you kind of bring up is the top secret stuff. We definitely have a lot of intellectual property that we are developing and that is not fully developed and ready to be discussed. But what we have figured out over the last several years, I founded the company in 2015. And so over the last several years, what we have found is that there is a remarkable science in regenerative medicine. We focus on some of the most advanced therapies in and around stem cell therapy. And what we found is that these stem cells that all of us have are able to be manipulated and expanded and multiplied to actually heal systemically. So this isn't just treating the symptoms. This isn't surgery or drugs. This is systemically healing either autoimmune disease or orthopedic issues and even neurological conditions. So we're a company that is based in the United States in Arizona, and we have treatment facilities offshore to help hundreds and thousands of people heal from some of those pretty severe diseases that don't have answers.
What led you to start this?
So I'm a business guy. I have no medical or scientific background. To give you kind of the shortened version, I was in a relationship with somebody that was in the pharmaceutical industry. She was really disenfranchised with medicine and the pharmaceutical industry because of, there's some controversial, payment issues and really the way that they were pushing some of the drugs that they knew had these terrible complications and weren't necessarily always the best solution for patients, but it was certainly a moneymaker. She was, doing very well financially, but just kind of disenfranchised. And, those were the dinner table conversations that we had every day. I was enjoying a pretty successful real estate career. I was the CEO of a publicly traded REIT. And, so I was pretty happy doing that. And what happened was I was helping co-market actually. I was selling a big property in Cabo San Lucas. It was about 300 hectares on beachfront property. It was a beautiful property back in the 50s, but it had been kind of run down. And when we were marketing this property, we were getting some really terrible offers. They were just, they were offers from big conglomerates like Starwood, and they liked the beachfront and they liked the possibility, but they knew they were going to have to put a bunch of money into it. And we were looking for better offers. So we started thinking outside of the box. I'm from Arizona. So as I'm sure everybody knows, it's a border state, right? We border Mexico. And there was something that we were seeing in the news and we were hearing from our friends and our family. And it was this term medical tourism, right? So medical tourism at the time, I had my dad went to Mexico to get dental work done, and I had friends that went to get plastic surgery. And so medical tourism was really happening a lot in border states like California and Arizona and Texas. And so what we did is we started marketing this property to medical tourism providers. Well, through that marketing effort, we came across a group of stem cell scientists that were looking to take their technology that they had developed in American universities, very high level, very safe and efficacious technologies that they wanted to really start helping people with and applying to people because they knew it was safe and they knew it was effective for certain indications. And so just through marketing this real estate property, I came across stem cell. And from there, it was a love affair. It was just something that I fell in love with, in the sense that I had no ability to help people in my life, to be a part of the medical system, just being a business guy. And I really became enamored in number one, something very new and, novel for the world, and being able to help a lot of people. So over the course of several years after finding out about it, I became a study on the University of YouTube, and, through reading books and that kind of thing. So I became somebody that was very interested in entering into the sector. So I founded a company in 2015 called BioXcellerator.
Got it. Got it. Wow. Okay. Now, you physically are not located in the United States. Is that correct?
Well, we are a corporate office, so we have many, many employees in the United States. But unfortunately, because of some bureaucracy in and around the regulation, mostly in the FDA and some health and human services codes, we are forced to go offshore. Now, there are some stem cell companies in the United States that are following the regulations that are in place, which are very antiquated. These are regulations that were essentially developed, 35 years ago for bone marrow transplants. And the science has advanced, as you can imagine, so much further than what was available 35 years ago. And so really the only thing that you find in the United States is very low level stem cell science. It's in most cases, it's a real waste of money, in the sense that people with severe ailments are really not going to find a lot of relief from what they're able to find in the United States. So because I want the best for our patients, I don't want to just, administer low level anything in my life. We are forced offshore. So our main treatment facility right now is in Medellin, Colombia, and soon to be in other locations around the world.
Got it. Got it. Was it intimidating to get into a completely different field? You'd been successful in real estate. You were CEO of a public company. You had no reason to, financially make this switch, and you're doing well. You mentioned that you did feel compelled based on, gosh, I really want to help individuals. I want to give back. I want to feel like I want to generate gratification from helping other human beings with ailments and other things. Was it, what was going through your head? Because folks don't typically go into medicine or, start a medical company, a healthcare focused company as sort of a first option.
For sure, it wasn't a first option. It was a lot of sleepless nights. It was not a quick decision. And there's still a lot of it that keeps me up at night, because, I am a little bit, I don't want the term over your skis, I don't think applies, because, from a business standpoint, we've got something really special. And then from a medical standpoint, we have something even more special, but a lot of that is out of my control because it's not my expertise. So that part of it scares the heck out of me every day. I'm used to being an entrepreneur where I would be able to essentially control every aspect of the business. And in this sense, I don't. But it has also taught me a lot about being a successful entrepreneur, in the sense that, you never know everything. And if you are the smartest guy in the room, a lot of times you're in the wrong room. So it's been a real refresher to be in a room of some brilliant PhD scientists and some amazing medical professionals and doctors and in every specialty. And so not only am I learning a lot, but I also have found that I had to rely on other people, which, is a part of life, I guess. So, but yeah, there were some scary times, and I don't want to overstate the facts. When I was the CEO of the real estate company, I had just taken over that position. I had been working my way through the ranks because I had experienced a real downturn in my life in real estate because of the recession that our great country went through back in, the 2008, 9, 10, 11 era, and so I lost a lot of properties, and, I was in a place where I was, I was not at the top of my game, and I was working my way back up, and we had just taken this company public, and so we were back on the right track essentially. But what happened in that era is that I saw the booms and the busts of real estate, and that also scared me, from a career standpoint. How do you have longevity in a place where there's cyclical markets that you also don't control? And so going into medicine and focusing on helping people, I kind of figured that, if you're focusing on helping people and you really have a technology that can really help people and change an industry, that we were on the precipice of something big. And so that part was less scary even than being in real estate for the rest of my life.
Makes total sense. That puts things in perspective. What was the reception when you brought this idea and this technology and this concept to not only the folks closest to you, right, but the folks that you wanted to endear to yourselves, the healthcare professionals that you needed to work with? How did you go about getting their buy-in? Or were they like, what's Eric doing taking this flyer on a, some healthcare company?
Yeah, I've started other businesses in my past, right? I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I used to have my mom take me to Costco, and we would buy Garbage Pail Kids, and we would buy, what were those? The Fireballs. They were these little cinnamon chew candies, right? And so we'd buy this huge container at Costco, and then I'd go sell them on the playground, and I'd make money. And those were good businesses. I've got plenty in between that were failed businesses. So one of the things that I learned is that a lot of times I try to keep my head down, keep my ideas to myself, and just prove through action. And so I didn't go around telling everybody in my sphere of influence what I was doing until I did it. But of course, I had to tell a lot of people, and my friends and my family thought I was crazy, and they believed in me and they loved me, but they still thought I was crazy. And then, even worse, when I was going out to raise money for this idea, I really found out that people didn't have a heck of a lot of vision or faith in my vision, because, you can imagine what I was setting out to do was, even for a medical professional, it was a tough putt. But for somebody in the non-medical side, it was even worse. So, I was calling people on the phone. At the end, I was cold calling people, asking to invest in my idea. And essentially the pitch was this: hey, my name's Eric. I'm a business guy. I have no medical background. I'm not a scientist. And I would like to open up a highly advanced scientific and medical company. And the treatments are very, very expensive, and they're not covered by insurance. And we're forced offshore because it's not necessarily legal in the United States yet. And we're going to go to Medellin, Colombia, which, was probably one of the most violent cities in the world at one point. Why don't you invest a couple $100,000 with me? What do you say? And as you can imagine, I got a lot of clicks. So yeah, it was not a great reception up front, but now that we've proved everybody to be wrong in that sense, now it's a much different story. My phone is ringing all day with people trying to give me money, and so it's been a nice switch.
There's a certain connotation when you combine healthcare and Latin America and going down from the States to experience any kind of treatments in these other countries, which is, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that there's a negative connotation. Was there a specific reason you chose Medellin?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked it, actually. Because at first I was looking at Mexico. I knew that we had to go to a country that was more favorable in the way that they viewed advanced cell therapy and the regulators. So I was looking at Mexico. COFEPRIS has some pretty progressive regulations and viewpoints on advanced cell therapy. And then I was looking in South America as well. And, I turned to my other two priorities. So number one was regulation. The other two were fantastic medical doctors and really, really good medical infrastructure from the standpoint of a country or a city. Not just good doctors, but also great hospitals and great ancillary providers and a really robust system. And so the more and more I looked for those three things together, the more and more Medellin started coming to the top. Colombia in general has very well respected doctors, very well trained doctors. They're typically also duly licensed in the United States or in Europe. And so they're very well respected. But then Medellin in general, because of its violence back in the 80s and 90s, which, by the way, it's super safe now, beautiful country. Yeah, I mean, people should visit. It's amazing. But because of its violence, and the reputation they earned back in the 80s and 90s, they also have fantastic trauma surgeons, and they have for many, many, many decades, because it was a war zone here. And so anyway, so that was it. It was great doctors, great hospitals. And to your earlier point, I know people, are kind of afraid of going offshore and away from the United States medical system to get treatment. And, they're right. In some countries, you don't go there, in other countries for medical treatment. But Mexico and Colombia and some other countries are in South America have fantastic medical care. I would say much, much better in many respects than the United States from a point of care perspective. Our doctors spend real time with you, and they're not controlled by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies that dictate that you can only spend 7 minutes with your patient, and before that you have to see a nurse or a PA, and then you come in and you do a checklist and you write a prescription and the doctor's out the door in 7 minutes. We'll spend hours with you here to make sure that we really understand your medical history and what's going on, and really try to come up with a plan together. So yeah, medical system in South America is incredible.
Interesting. How do you go about getting your patients? Is it word of mouth? Are you doing marketing programs? What are the biggest objections that people have? There's a laundry list of things that I would imagine someone has to go through just from a thought process standpoint, from the time that they find out about you to the time that they're at one of your facilities. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, so accurate in the point that you're making relating to how long it would take somebody to just even find out about it. But then really getting the good information, the real information, is even harder for our patient because like I mentioned earlier, stem cell therapy on the low level is actually legal in the United States. And so you'll have these companies that are marketing that all stem cell therapy is the same, and that they can just go to their local doctor and get an injection and be on their way. And really, our patients have to do some real education on their own to find out that no, that's really not accurate. There's only a couple of clinics around the world that really, you have the best bang for the buck, and more importantly, you have the best option at getting some real positive outcomes. The other part of that is that doctors in the United States, which by the way, they're fantastic. We have some of the best specialists, the highest level technologies in many areas of the United States in medicine. But the doctors in the United States and around the world are not trained in stem cell science. There's very few courses in current medical school relating to advanced therapies or stem cell, because it's not medicine, it's actually science. So our scientists are the experts, our PhDs in microbiology and protein bacteriology and all these other disciplines. The PhDs are the actual geniuses, and they're the ones that are really knowledgeable, not the doctors. Now, stem cell therapy is the combination of those two, the medicine applying the science. But so the point I'm making is that the doctors on the medical side have an opinion about stem cell therapy, but it's typically, it's the future of medicine, they say. It's the future. But they don't know that the future is actually happening right now, and they're not the experts. So a lot of times the doctors just are not experts, but they levy their opinion on how much a patient might expect in the way of results. So education is a key. But if I could take it a step further, I'm going to back up a little bit and point something out because you asked about advertising and how we get our patients. We are lucky enough at this point to be almost not solely, but a very high percentage of our patients come from word of mouth. Because we've treated a lot of very famous NFL players and soccer players around the world, and probably our most predominant base is UFC fighters. So pretty much anybody that's ever had a UFC championship belt are one of our patients, and then all the way through the ranks, from the top 10 guys to the guys that are just starting. So they talk a lot in the locker rooms, and that's been great, but really it's the CEOs, it's the entrepreneurs, it's the small business owners, it's the guys that are, have the wherewithal to spend $20,000 or $25,000 on a therapy. And they're also in the mindset to understand that without health and without investing in your health, there is nothing. So they're not out there buying another car. They're not out there going on another vacation. They're investing in their health. So those are the main bulk of our patients right now. But the crazy thing is that we can't advertise that. The pharmaceutical companies and big insurance have put bans on us advertising on Facebook and on Google and on YouTube. And for what reason, I don't know, because there's no debate in the scientific community. These therapies are safe and effective for many, many indications. And so from an advertisement standpoint, it's very difficult to be in a traditional mode of advertising to get the word out to our patients. We can't help more people because we can't advertise.
Got it. Got it. Is that something that is solely due to big pharma and the lobbyists that affect these sorts of regulations?
So my hunch, this is not backed by science, but my hunch is yes, because I'll look at it this way. The United States is one of 2 countries in the world that allows pharmaceutical companies to market directly to the consumer. So this is why you see all those commercials, and they have the best spots during the Super Bowl and during the Oscars and all the biggest events. You'll see commercials that are 30 seconds long, right? They're 30 seconds. The first 20 seconds are about the side effects, these terrible side effects. And then the last 10 seconds are how these pharmaceuticals might help you. And they're allowed to do that. And most of the world, 99.99% of the world does not allow the pharmaceutical companies to do that. So they're allowed to advertise on TV. Meanwhile, for some reason, companies like ours, small companies, are not even allowed to go on Facebook or to buy a Google AdWord or on YouTube. Now, we have a great YouTube channel. We have great social media presence. But this is our patients speaking for themselves. It's not us paying our patients. It's us actually administering results and patients saying, hey, yeah, you know what? I want my friends and family to know about this. I want people to know that this really changed my life. So that we are allowed to do. So I'm not saying that there's zero, but why are pharmaceutical companies allowed to market, but my company is not? So I would guess that there's some major lobbying against companies like ours. Yeah.
When you were starting this, before the word about BioXcellerator got out in the UFC community, the NFL, Major League Sports, and where you were able to attract a multitude of these types of patients, how did you get in with that crowd early on?
I have always been a UFC fan. And
Okay.
so I had some contact with a couple of guys that were former fighters. And one of those guys was somebody that had started working after his UFC career. He started working in the pharmaceutical industry. So he had some experience in selling medical products.
In terms of the startup, so you got your first clients, you had some good friends in the UFC community and you had a friend who had transitioned from being in UFC to selling pharma, and he's the individual that helped get you your first sort of roster of patients.
Yeah, and he wasn't a friend. He was just somebody that was in the Phoenix area that I had come in contact with before. And so I always knew that I was going to go after this community, the UFC community, because I knew that they were underserved, and they were also very well respected in all of sports. They may be some of the highest level athletes on the planet. Because they train in many, many disciplines, and let's be honest, they're getting punched in the face for a living. So they're typically tough guys, but they're beat up. And so really the focus was, I know they're going to continually need this service, possibly more than anybody. And so I was always going to focus in. Again, the guy wasn't really my friend necessarily. It was just because that was a modality of advertising that I was going to go after. So I solicited this guy to come work for my company.
Got it. And that sort of started the almost snowball effect of gathering credibility in that audience. Got it.
Absolutely.
What are the most common procedures? Are there particular procedures that are no-brainers that people reach out to you for?
Yeah, typically people are motivated by pain. And so, people that have been in chronic pain for a long time, they're the ones that are reaching out. They're the ones that are educating themselves that, the stem cell therapy in the United States isn't quite enough. Or a lot of times we'll have people that have tried stem cell in the US and they really didn't get any result, or they got a minor result for a really minimal amount of time. So then they started educating themselves to find kind of the best in the world. But it's typically orthopedic pain, to answer your question. So it's guys that want to stay out on the golf course, but they have, some hip issues or a knee that's bothering them. They're active, they want to stay in the gym to stay fit, or on the tennis court. So those are typically the motivators. And then, of course, our professional athletes, they're always getting hurt. And so it's those same orthopedic issues that I would say are the no-brainers. That's where we have fantastic results. One thing that we specialize in that a lot of other places don't is the spine and disc orthopedic issues. So we'll actually treat disc and facet issues that we have amazing outcomes with. So those are the no-brainers. But then when you get to the next level, people with autoimmune disease come to us, and depending on the disease, the autoimmune disease, we have really positive outcomes with some, not all. And then we actually have some neurological conditions that we treat as well.
Got it. What does the patient experience look like? Can you sort of give me a play-by-play from intake to release, I guess?
Yeah, we have a patient experience department, and that is typically the first contact where you as a patient, a prospect patient, would contact a patient advocate, and you can find that through our social media or online or referral. But that patient advocate will essentially hold your hand throughout the entire process. So we assign somebody specific to each patient. They'll take you through initial discovery, communication, meaning like you have just some basic questions, to when you start getting more granular, and when you're really ready to move on, we'll have them get you in touch with one of our specialists, where we will do a consultation to evaluate whether or not you are in fact a candidate or not. The truth is that we deny more people than we accept. We're really trying to be protective of the industry, and if we don't really think that you're going to have a great outcome, then we're not going to accept you. But anyways, the patient advocate will take you through that whole process, and once you decide to become a patient, which is maybe what your real question is, what does that look like as a patient? So what you would do is we would help you everything from soup to nuts with travel and hotel. We have a what we call a medical tourism compound here. It's a campus that is comprised of hundreds of medical specialists, our clinic, of course, and then there's a mall that would rival any mall that you see in the United States. So it's a beautiful mall with high-end stores. Also has two great grocery stores. One of them's an organic store. Many great restaurants, not like food court restaurants that you see in the United States, but these are actually like real high-end restaurants. And then that's attached to our hotel. So we have a 4-star hotel that you stay at. You never, for the unadventurous, you never have to leave the roof. So we pick you up at the airport. You have a personalized driver that kind of gives you the tour down to the clinic, which is about a 20-25 minute drive. And then you check into the hotel, and you never have to leave. But for the adventurous, we also put together some tours of both the city and some of the surrounding city areas, for some of the touristy stuff. And we take care of all of that. And we like our patients to stay for 5 days. So they check in with us on Monday, and they finish up on Friday. So the treatments, although they're non-invasive, it's typically just an IV or a intra-articular shot, or maybe intramuscular, and some pretty non-invasive shots of stem cell therapy. But what we also do in the middle of all that is we stack the stem cell therapies with other alternative therapies that are supportive to best outcomes for stem cell. So what we do is we'll take you through cryotherapy sessions, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy sessions, and ozone therapy, and bioregulatory and immune modulation IV therapy, and many others. I won't name them all, but that's a good sense of what you'll be doing all week. So it's not just the stem cell therapy.
Got it. This may seem like a rhetorical question, but how do you incorporate purpose into your work as a CEO of a fast growth company? Is your focus revenue? Is your focus, I know you mentioned earlier, helping people, but from the standpoint of purpose, what really drives you?
Yeah, the unfortunate part about this sector of medicine is that it's not covered by insurance, and healthcare providers and governments that have subsidies for healthcare for their patients or their constituents don't pay for this. So the business side of it is unfortunate in the sense that we do have to focus on revenue. Without revenue, we're not able to develop more science. We're not able to hire more specialists. We're not able to, pay for additional machines, like cryotherapy or hyperbaric oxygen, which we know that when stacked together make for a better outcome for our patients. So, yeah, unfortunately, we have to, as a business, we have to focus on revenue, but we never have that in the beginning part of our discussions relating to purpose. It's always about how can we help more patients. And so when you start by saying that first, how can we help more patients? And then what is better for our patients? How can we improve our patients' outcomes? That always, I find that when you focus on that, the rest ends up falling in place.
Got it. Okay. Currently, what are some of your biggest challenges? Maybe top 3.
Definitely miseducation, especially in the United States. There was a push, I'm guessing, by pharmaceutical companies back in the early 2000s where, they were really, saying that the stem cell scientists that were practicing were very controversial because they were using embryonic stem cells and embryonic stem cells, the way that they're sourced could be controversial. We don't do that, right? We have a healthy mom and a healthy baby that go home and live healthy lives together, and where they would typically throw away this umbilical cord after they deliver the baby, they would typically throw it away as medical waste. Now they're able to donate that umbilical cord to scientific companies like ours, where we're able to help thousands of people. So there's really no controversy around the sourcing of stem cell. So that's one miseducation. The other thing that I talked about earlier is that, doctors honestly don't know a lot about stem cell, but they're so, ingrained in the way that they have to talk to their patients from a point of authority, that they end up, saying some things that aren't necessarily true. And because some of them just don't know. They don't know how far these advancements have gone, and they don't know that there's amazing medical care in other countries. The United States is amazing, but it's not the center of the world in everything. There are other countries that are doing a pretty good job. So those are the 2 top, and then the other is getting the word out. Being able to advertise and really talk to patients about what stem cell therapy can really do for them. So that's it. Those are the top 3.
Got it. To what extent are you able to use digital marketing to grow your brand and attract patients? What are the things that you're allowed to do? What are the things that you're not allowed to do?
We are able to use digital marketing. That's actually, one of our highest and best use. So we do have a presence, but, again, we have to be creative because we can't, the typical modalities that are available in digital marketing, buying Google AdWords or, some of those things that are pretty easy for most businesses, where you go, hey, look, I have a marketing budget and I'm going to allocate it to this. And then you figure out if you're actually getting an ROI on that, and you kind of move those pieces around and put a budget towards what is going to give you an ROI. We're not allowed to do that. So we have to be much more creative. So, in the sense that, yes, we have social media presence. We have a fantastic YouTube channel. Our Instagram is great. And we rely on our patients to give us testimonials and then hopefully circulate it in their crowds. And so, again, we're lucky that we've had a lot of famous NFL guys and Major League Baseball and UFC, talk about us openly, and, without compensation. And so we're very proud of that. But it's just guys like you and me that are, entrepreneurs, and we have, a decent following. Yours is much better than mine, but, people that are actually listening and wanting to educate themselves. And so we have a lot of guys that come down here that are just, they're CEOs, they're entrepreneurs, they're small business guys, they're, mid-level managers, and they're talking about it with their friends. And so, their 1,000 followers or 30,000 followers, somebody listens and then picks up the phone and calls us. So that's kind of where we're at with our marketing.
Got it. Where do you see your industry changing over the next 12 to 24 months?
Where I hope it would go is following in the footsteps of cannabis. I don't think it's going to do that in the next 12 or 24 months. I think it's going to take much longer. But I think there's going to be that kind of hockey stick effect, at some point in the next decade. But to get to your question, 12 or 24 months, I think we're going to be continuing to, work with FDA regulators. We're going to have more clinical trials that are further down the pipeline, meaning into like stage 2 and even stage 3 of commercialization of some of the products. That's not going to be nearly enough as we have, these pharmaceutical factions and big insurance that are fighting us tooth and nail. So I think the next 12 to 24 months are going to be, companies like ours expanding throughout the globe, and just more patients having to be forced offshore. But what I'm hoping is that, the patients are listening to their friends and their family, and, maybe famous singers that have gone to us, or A-list movie stars that might talk about us on their Instagram, actually listening to those guys and go, yeah, you know what, there's a reason that they have access to the best doctors, the best medical professionals in the United States, and they're going offshore. Why are they doing that?
Yep. So just thinking, the expectation or the anticipation that more people will begin thinking independently and listening to other folks that have done so and following suit. Okay.
100%. And you know what? I've seen an uptick in that since COVID. So before, people weren't necessarily, there's a much bigger trust factor. Now you can see that there's been a shift in just in the phone calls that we get. It's people that are in a different demographic that typically wouldn't be looking into alternative therapies or experimental medical technology. And it's people that would typically just blindly listen to what they hear on the news, or blindly listen to what their doctor is telling them in the United States. Now we have people that are going, wait a minute, my doc might just not know. My doc thinks that, the treatment that he's pushing is safe, but you know what? There's another side of it that I'm going to listen to and think independently. So you're right about that.
Very cool. Are there unique things that BioXcellerator does when compared with other folks that offer stem cell therapies, maybe in other parts of the world, that allow you to have an edge? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I can give you the number one, and that's that we are an evidence-based clinic. So the only thing that we do, and as I mentioned before, we turn down more patients than we accept. The only people that we treat are based on global evidence, and then, more importantly, our evidence. So we do something that most other stem cell clinics in the world don't do. There's really us in Panama that do this, and we put our laboratory and our clinic together. So we control the laboratory, we make the science, we make sure that we have a relationship from a scientific standpoint with our patient, and then we apply that and we do it all together. So we know that our cells are not only safe, but we know that they're the most effective. And what other clinics do is they purchase stem cells or other kinds of cells from laboratories. Now, these laboratories might be great laboratories, but they have no relationship with the patient. And their job, just like any other business, is to increase production while decreasing cost, right? That's 101 in almost any business. And so that's what the laboratories do. They increase production and they decrease cost. And we know from experience that when you decrease cost, you're cutting very important, scientific reagents and very important scientific equipment to have the best possible outcomes. And then when you increase production, you're also making cells that are not nearly as effective, because you can keep multiplying stem cells pretty much indefinitely. So from a business model standpoint, it could be pretty good, but we know that once you keep increasing past a certain point, the efficacy plummets. And so we make sure that we stop our production at the perfect stage for efficacy. So these other clinics that are just buying stem cells, yeah, they might be buying 100 million stem cells, and the cost might be a little bit lower than what we're able to do. But from a patient standpoint, it's just a waste of money, because you're not getting nearly the benefit that your pain dictates you should have. So that's number one. We're evidence-based, and then we stack a lot of the other modalities that we know are going to continue to help proliferate our treatments, our therapy treatments. So those are the top two. I've got 5 others, but I won't bore your audience with those.
No, I'd love for you to continue. Please do.
So the integrative approach that we take, we aren't just what we call spraying and praying, which a lot of these other clinics that are buying stem cells that they have no idea what they're really doing. We're able to actually diagnose our cells and know exactly which protein markers or growth factors or exosomes or cytokines that they're expressing. So we know which lines of cells to inject where. But more importantly, we also take a nutritional approach. So we start with your nutrition long before you're able to come down to our facility. We get you on a nutraceutical regimen, and then some of the other modalities that we stack on. And then the last piece that I think is essential is that our point of care is top notch. I mean, we have doctors in every specialty. So a lot of the other places around the world, you don't see that. You see maybe one doctor, maybe sometimes even a chiropractor with a nurse practitioner, or one general doctor that is responsible for the operations of the clinic, and many different facets of application, which they're in a lot of cases not necessarily qualified to do. Meaning, we have 2 neurosurgeons, we have 2 orthopedic surgeons, we have a sports medicine doctor, we have an emergency physician, we have 8 epidemiologists that are just studying global evidence and writing research papers and case studies and clinical trials, and many others, plus PhDs. And so we have depth in our science and medicine that you don't really see in other clinics.
Very cool. Very cool. Shifting gears a little bit, is there a book that you've read recently that has had an impact on your life that you would recommend to others?
Yes. I don't know if I have it here, but there's one called Lifespan. No, I don't have it here. Lifespan is a fantastic book. Tony Robbins actually just did a really nice piece about stem cell therapy in his latest book as well. But Lifespan by David Sinclair is fantastic.
Awesome. What keeps you up at night, Eric?
As an entrepreneur, I'm a competitive guy, so I'm seeing a lot of competitors pop up in and around the world. And I want to be the best, and I want to make sure that we're always a step ahead, and we are. But what keeps me up is actually how to work with them instead of against them. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is that a lot of these guys are not understanding that purchasing stem cells from an outside laboratory is not great for their patients, and it's not an easy business to be in if you're not willing to invest a lot of money in things that are not going to drop to the bottom line right away. And so it keeps me up at night trying on how do I educate those guys on how to protect our industry. So they can go off and sell stem cells, and they'll have plenty of patients, and they'll have probably a good paycheck at the end of the day. But it's not doing anything for our industry. It's actually a real detriment to the industry as a whole, because then their patients go and tell their friends about a lackluster experience, and even worse, not great results. And then so everybody thinks that the word stem cell they're all the same. Well, they're not. It's like putting cars in the same category, and one guy is driving a Ferrari and one guy is driving a 1973 Volkswagen Beetle. They're vastly different devices and machines, but they're both cars. And so getting the other people in the industry to protect the industry and not just pretend like stem cell therapy is all the same.
Thank you. Eric, always a pleasure. If somebody wants to reach out to and understand and learn more that might be having orthopedic pain or has an autoimmune condition, what is the best way to reach out to BioXcellerator to start the process?
If you want to start the process, there's a plethora of information on our website. You can also chat with somebody live on our website, or there's a phone number or email address, whatever modality is best for you. You can find it on our website. But if you're earlier in the stage where you're not ready to talk to somebody yet, certainly the education on the website is good. But you can also hear from our actual patients on our YouTube channel. These are not paid for, sponsored testimonials. These are people that are actually patients of ours. And then, if you're a social media person, our Instagram, also has a lot of those same stories with some additional day-to-day updates of people actually in the clinic and, walkthroughs and meeting some of our doctors. So we have a good social presence, but for people that are really ready for some deep education, go to our website at BioXcellerator.com.
There you have it, guys. Eric Stoffers, CEO, founder of BioXcellerator, doing some amazing, amazing things, pushing the industry forward. I hope you check him out. Thanks so much.
I appreciate the time. Thanks. I appreciate it.